Hey everybody, this is Sean Riley with Riley Real Estate and MassHomesale.com with this week's Q&A Saturday video. This week I'm going to answer the question of what do I have to disclose? So when you're selling a property, you have a lot of information about it, and some of it you have to disclose to potential buyers, other stuff you don't necessarily have to. So we're going to discuss a little bit about what the differences are and what things you do and do not have to disclose. We're based in Massachusetts. We do some work in southern New Hampshire as well, but we do most of our stuff in Massachusetts, so I'm going to talk mostly about that. Massachusetts actually has less stringent disclosure laws than quite a few other states, which is a little surprising given how Massachusetts is generally perceived in these situations. But we are definitely a caveat emptor, buyer beware state, where it really is up to the buyer to try to discover any problems with the home and to inquire about any problems and not depend on the seller letting them know what kind of issues there are. There are actually only two issues or two things that need to be disclosed in Massachusetts. First is lead paint. So you're always going to see, pretty much everywhere, you're always going to see a lead paint disclosure. More often than not, it's going to say you don't know one way or the other. Obviously, any seller that has a lead report saying that their home is free of lead, they're certainly going to include that, since that's a good selling point. But if they know there is lead paint, they do have to disclose that, and that is one of the only things that they do actually have to disclose. But most people will say they don't have any knowledge of it because they've never had a lead test. The only other thing you have to disclose is the presence of a septic system, not necessarily the condition. However, there is a law, the Title V law, which says it needs to be inspected at some point. You can sell a house with a failed septic system. We actually did a video on that a while back, and we'll link to that below. But that is the only other thing that has to be disclosed by a private seller in Massachusetts. Now, however, just because you don't have to voluntarily give up information doesn't mean that you can be dishonest. So if a seller actually asks you a question about something, you can't lie about it, you can't be vague, you can't dance around the issue. If your basement floods, you don't have to tell them, but if they ask, hey, does the basement flood, you can't say no. So that's pretty cut and dry example of how that would work. So as a private seller working by yourself, selling a house, those are the only two things you have to disclose, but you do have to be truthful in all other things. If you are working with a real estate agent to sell your home, it's a little bit different. The agent is held to a higher standard, and they do need to disclose anything that they know about that could materially affect the buyer's decision to purchase the home or not. Now, obviously, they can't disclose things they don't know about, but if they know that your basement floods, they will have to disclose it without being asked about it. So they would have to tell a buyer about that, and their agent put it in the remarks, fill out disclosure forms, whatever. And actually, if you are selling and agent asks you to fill out a disclosure form, that is actually to protect them, not to protect you. Because if you disclose everything that you know about the home and they put it on a form, that pretty much would get them away from any liability, saying, well, I asked the seller all of these particular questions and this is what they told me. I can't disclose things I don't know about. But they do have to disclose all of these things without being asked. So that is a downside, quote unquote, working with an agent, is they're held to that higher standard. Now, in reality, if you're a good person and you aren't trying to deceive anybody, then you would let people know these things anyway. But there are maybe minor issues that could you might not want to just tell people about, that an agent would be required to. So besides that, even if you want to sell your house as is, you still have to be truthful about any questions that they have. Like, selling as is just means that you don't want to repair anything. It doesn't mean you can lie about issues with the house. So there's another reason why sometimes it's beneficial to work with investors, because we generally buy stuff as is. We're not looking at minor issues. Major issues we're going to be able to detect, and if we can't easily detect them, you probably don't know about them either. And we're used to dealing with that stuff. We're planning on fixing things, and we don't, we're not going to nitpick over stuff. We're not going to come back and try to sue you afterwards. That is something that can still come up, even though it's buyer beware. If they feel that you were dishonest with them about something, they can sue, and they can sue under what's called Chapter 93A, a Consumer Protection Bill, which actually could entitle them to triple whatever the actual monetary damages, plus potentially all of the attorney and court fees as well. Now again, they have to prove that there was some willful negligence or willful disregard of the person's rights under is different. So like I said, they basically would have to prove that you lied about something, but you still have to go to court. You still have to fight it. Unless it's deemed completely frivolous, you still have to pay an attorney to deal with it. So it's not something particularly desirable to have to get into. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. So anyway, Massachusetts, a buyer beware state. The only things you have to disclose are lead paint and the presence of a septic system, but you do have to be truthful and honest about anything that you are asked about. And if you're working with a real estate agent, they are held to a higher standard and need to disclose anything that they know about. So that kind of wraps it up in a nutshell. If you're in a different state, check out your own laws. As I said, many states actually have much higher, for any private seller, many states are actually much closer to what the real estate agent criteria is in Massachusetts. So check your own state if you're from somewhere else to see what your disclosure laws are. And if there's any questions about that or about anything with Massachusetts or other questions about disclosure, as always, feel free to put them in the comments below. And if there is another topic you would like to see in one of these videos, as always, you can put it on our Facebook page, our Twitter account, or send an email to info@masshomesale.com. And hope to hear from you guys. And I guess I'll see you guys next week. All right.